I'm just refreshing the YouTube channel. I don't see it yet. Welcome to Ephemera! I am fantasy author Katie Brisky.
And I am editor Jen R. Albert. We hope you're enjoying our theme music courtesy of Alex White. Welcome to anyone joining us for the first time, and welcome back to those who have visited our virtual home before. To those who are new, Ephemera is an award-nominated reading series chaired by Katie and myself.
Pre-COVID, we held events in the Glad Day bookshop, and while we patiently wait to bring all of Ephemera's friends together in that amazing space, we are delighted to have you join us here on the internet. And we would like to begin tonight by acknowledging that the land on which Jen and I live and work is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. This land is covered under Treaty 13 and is part of the Dish with One Spoon. As I was going through the Ontario public elementary school system in the late 90s, early aughts, the textbook still emphasized friendship between Indigenous peoples and white settlers. Some of you may recognize the narrative. They taught each other and traded, and sometimes they even lived together. And these books neglected to mention residential schools, or John A. Macdonald's national policy, which starved Indigenous communities for the sake of a railway, or the water crises, or the stolen land, or the thousands of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. Taken as a whole, it's not much of a friendship. I'd like to think that we can change things, that it can be in the future. But friendship takes work. You can't just slap a label on a relationship, "We're friends now," and call it done. True, lasting friendship takes labor and care and deep, deep respect. It requires ownership of and accountability for harms that you've caused, bolstered by a commitment to change. And friendship isn't always about getting along or being nice. It means having the hard conversations and calling out toxic behavior in systems, in other people, and in yourself. Friendship isn't as easy as just saying the word, and neither is reconciliation. The work is ongoing, the work is real, and it's vitally important. Consider tonight how you can contribute to it, especially those of you who have privilege or who benefit from the colonial system still in place. There's been growth, I think, from the late 90s, early aughts, but we've got so much further to go. Thank you.
A reminder to everyone that our code of conduct is posted online. If this is your first event, please do check it out on our Twitter or our Facebook. If you are so inclined, you can still feed Fred the physically distanced donation dragon. You can find our Ko-fi link at the top of our page.
And one of the things that we love about Ephemera is that it often combines two of our favorite things: fiction and friendship. Old friends and new, tuning in from around the world and across time. Thank you for being here.
And joining us from the future, I am pleased to welcome our first reader, G.V. Anderson. G.V. Anderson's short stories have won a World Fantasy Award, a British Fantasy Award, and been nominated for the Nebula. Her work can be found in Lightspeed and Tor.com, as well as anthologies such as The Year's Best Dark Fantasy and Horror. She lives in Dorset, UK, and is currently writing her first novel. GV?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Jen and Katie. It's really lovely to have been invited on. It's just past midnight here, so you'll forgive me if I misspeak. But I'm going to do a short reading from a story of mine that was published in IndZone in 2019. It's called For the Wicked, Only Weeds Will Grow. As far as content warnings, there's a few instances of language, and it's based in a hospice setting. So please bear that in mind when you think about whether or not you want to do that. I watch and wait while Arnold Burke's metabolism works its sluggish way through my pain suppressors. My cilia oscillate, steering me about the little room that smells of fresh herbs, and beneath, betraying its history, sharp traces of disinfectant. I roll him onto his side with my tentacles to dab gently at his neck and chest with a warm, wet cloth, and trickle fluids directly into his esophagus. When he defecates, I clear away the mess. With a small, dexterous tentacle, I unlatch the window which opens onto the herb garden and strew his feces onto the compost below. It intrigues me how bodies and their waste break down and so nourish the land in this way, as wine cannot. But all the nourishment in the universe will not sustain Requus, for ours is a dying colony. We are born from the Ephemera plant, and with only the descendants of Oar and their siblings to pollinate them, our numbers have fallen dangerously low. Each new spawning is smaller than the last. It's believed that a patient's mind plays as large a part as their physical remains in germinating our seeds. So it is important they attain closure before death. But a part of me, an indecently agitated part I dare not show, fears we need nothing less than another crashed pleasure ship to sustain our numbers. This churns inside me for some time. Our distant sun sets and rises again before the ruffle of fabric from behind draws me away. Arnold Burke heaves himself into a sitting position and blinks around at the room, its bare walls, the spray of rare Terran sweet peas on the sideboard, which I carefully picked from the sanatoria's greenhouse. He swings his skinny legs onto the floor, testing the heated boards with 10 hairy yellow-nailed toes. Then he looks at me, his eyes narrowed meanly. Didn't pump enough of your shite into me then. I'm still here. I hang my tentacles straight. I don't want to give away my discomfort. I did not intend to give you such a large... He wets his lips, eyebrows low, staring at the view through the open window. I'm not staying here. You can't keep someone against his will. I have rights. My cilia ripple. Most patients choose to come to Requus for their final months, but some, unable to decide for themselves due to advanced age or illness, are sent to us by their local authority or their relatives. For those few, we are always given notice, but for Arnold Burke, we've had nothing. Even our mesh yesterday, however intimate, that only allowed for a glimpse across the surface of his thoughts. That is true, but I would advise you to stay, I say. Your metastasis is so advanced as to make a departure very uncomfortable indeed. Without proper care, you may not even survive to see the station. Here, however, we can manage your pain to whatever degree is desired. You may use all the sanatoria's amenities. Many areas of the old pleasure ship are still intact and functional. Requus is a peaceful place to die, Terran. Whoever sent you here wanted the best for you. You sound like a floatin' feckin' advert. A peaceful place to die. You know what is a peaceful place to die? At home, in my own bed. Phlegm catches in his throat. He hacks it up, concaved and clinging to the edge of the bed. I move forward, stretching out my tentacles to steady him, but he gasps at me to get away. Does he not understand that I'm trying to help? Then I smell the sweet urine in my olfactory organs, and I cannot stand by. I resist his attempts to bat me away as I remove the absorbent pad in his crotch, clean around his genitals and replace it. With another tentacle, I massage his back, teasing out the knots. Eventually, he was quiet and still. Voices from the garden, other patients taking the air, soften the tension in the room. When he seems recovered, I say, thinking of the faces I saw during our mesh, "Did your relatives send you here? We can get a message to them that you arrived safely. They can visit if you like. Make it feel like home." "Don't bother," he croaked. There's no one left. Open private channel. Request ID file for new patient Arnold Burke. Stop. Sending. Sending. The mechanically minded among us maintain the ship's radio so that Request can broadcast and receive messages. We've been established so long, we have our own frequency. 60 hours after my request for information goes out, Arnold Burke's home station responds with an account of his service as a lieutenant in the auxiliary forces, before being quietly retired following allegations of misconduct. It goes on to note that he outlived his next of kin, a female partner, by some years, and has since lost touch with their children and grandchildren. Living alone and bitterly lonely, allowed to ferment in his own prejudices, he'd become something of a nuisance. Even so, they deny sending him to us. I broadcast a message to his family, his last known home station instead, but received no reply. In the face of that silence, I pity him. "But he's horrible," says Hawa as we circuit the garden by starlight one night, their distress colouring their organs. "Why should horrible patients get to linger when the good ones go so soon?" Hawa's patient, the Bhutan, passed quickly, and Hawa, my dear gentle Hawa, always takes the losses hard. I entwine my palps with theirs. Ua says every death is different. It's not for us to understand nor judge. Hawa pulls away, hurt. "Do you accept everything Ua says, Moo?" I always have, ever since Ua's palp teased me, Hawa, and the rest of our spawn siblings out of our buds and into the world. Their mind was the first I heard, their touch the first I felt. Ua has always been like a parent to me, and I have drunk their wisdom down like nectar. But I struggle to follow their example when it comes to Arnold Burke. The Terran's symptoms grow worse, and yet he refuses pain suppressors, support, compensation, everything I've been trained to do. He disturbs the other patients by barking at them when they pass too close to his window, saying they obstruct his view, or by loudly refusing to eat dinner next to a patient on account of their species. If the ooze of a Zrehin's mucus doesn't nauseate him, a Titan's body hair makes him itch. When he sleeps at night, I hover over him and wonder, what crime would it be, really, if I were to flood him with opiates again, so that he'd slip into a deeper, more permanent sleep? No one would miss him. And then I dart out of the room like a minnow to a secluded part of the sanatoria where the old control panels still flicker in the dark, and cower in shame at my own spite. Open public channel. Please respond, stop. Sending. We are dying, stop. Sending. Sending. After dinner, I turned the wheelchair left towards the burial gardens instead of right, and Arnold Burke tilts back his head to scowl at me. "Where are you taking me now, Druggle?" "My name is Moo." Arnold Burke will soon become too weak to eat his meals in the dining room, and I will have to care for him in the close confines of his room until he dies. He may never travel beneath this trailing ivy again. He may never see the place of my birth, nor the place of his final rest. Nothing else shocks quite like one's mortality. The ivy bower opens out onto the first of many burial gardens, with hundreds of grave plots arranged in uniform rows stretching wider than my peripheral vision. Some of them are topped with bare soil, but most bear trinkets from visitors. Bouquets for anniversaries missed, photographs or souvenirs, which my siblings keep in as good condition as the day they were laid down. From a precious few, far too few, grow Ephemera shrubs, fed from the rich remains of those decomposing below. Clusters of fur-edged leaves and purpling buds bob in the wind. The most swollen of them promise to burst soon, releasing a clutch of our young. A path cuts through the graves, leading on and up to newer burial gardens in the mountains ahead. It is said that those plots are high enough to see snowfall. I have never been assigned pollination duty, so have not seen it myself. Arnold Burke looks bitterly upon it all. I was sent here to be fertilizer. Not all of the seeds take, I say, gesturing to one or two little shoots that are already browning. But it is true that your remains provide us with the nutrients we need to grow best. Scoffed. Bother keeping me comfortable then? Why don't you just kill me and have done with it? Because I recall being poised above him, my barbs dripping, and how wrong it felt. How can I be welcome amongst my kind with this darkness inside me? And yet how can I be complacent like Ua when there is so much that still needs to change? Because that sounds like murder, I say firmly. That is not our.
Thank you so much, Emma. That was wonderful. I will say you always have, first of all, the best titles, which are then followed just by such delicious stories. I'm so glad to have heard some of that. And do check out the rest in Interzone. Guess what, though?
Wait, what?
We received a note from a secret friend. It's all mysterious. And it totally says, "Dear Ephemera people," audience and guests, I think that's you. "I just want to say that I think you're really swell, and if you would like to be friends, I would like that too. Find me." But there's no signature. So I vote that we go on a quest to discover our secret friend.
Yes, such penmanship seems reasonable, but where...
Especially when you consider that Zoom is mirrored, it's great penmanship.
Yes, didn't really think of that. I guess our friend didn't. Well, where do we start? Perhaps we could ask the Swamp Hag.
The Swamp Hag, or we could return to the Haunted Manor from several months back.
If anybody recalls, we could do something completely new and go to the kingdom at the ocean's bottom. Swamp, Haunted Manor, or Ocean Kingdom. Vote in the chat or on Twitter.
But while we decide where we begin our quest, I am very pleased to introduce tonight's performer, Caitlyn Paxson. Caitlyn Paxson is a writer and performer. She reviews books for NPR Books, Quill and Choir, and other publications. Her poetry has appeared in a variety of places, including Stone Telling, Mythic Delirium, and Goblin Fruit. She has worked as the artistic director of storytelling performances, a fiber arts consultant, a legal document and poetry transcriber, a 19th century jack of all trades, and a shepherdess. You can find her at CaitlynPaxson.com or at Caitlyn Paxson on Instagram. Hi, Caitlyn. Thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone. And thank you so much for having me. I'm here in snowy Prince Edward Island, and I'm very delighted to be here with you this evening, especially in such talented company. So when I was asked to perform tonight, I was a little bit concerned that my internet connection might not stand up to the challenge. So I've prepared 3 songs as videos to share instead of doing a live performance. And I'd just like to run through what those songs will be so you have some context before you see them. So when I was told the theme of this evening, I was a little bit stymied because my specialty is gloomy ballads. And gloomy ballads have lots of murder, lots of love gone wrong, infanticide, all kinds of lovely things, but very little friendship in general. So I had to really stretch to find some things, but I did come up with a few. So the first song that you're going to be hearing is a very old ballad, arguably about medieval England's original bros, Robin Hood and Little John. And it's called Robin Hood's Death. So you can see I've still got the cheerful quality in there. And I learned it from the singing of an amazing folklorist and musician called Art Theme. He's an American folk musician. And lately I've been experimenting a little with accompanying myself on the spinning wheel when I sing, using it as a percussive element. So you'll get a little bit of that in that song. The second song you're going to hear is called Let No Man Steal Your Time. And it's another very old ballad. And I will admit it is stretching the theme a little bit, but I'm going to argue that it is friendly advice. So that's my angle for that one. And I learned that from the singing of Anne Briggs, who's a British folk musician. And the last song that you'll hear is a song that I learned from friends and that I associate with sort of the end of an evening at the pub making music with friends, which is something that I think we're all hoping to get back to sooner rather than later. And it's called The Parting Glass. And on that piece, I'll be accompanying myself on the harp. So thank you all so much for being here tonight, for listening. Thank you to Ephemera, and thank you to my husband who made these videos for all of us, which I very much appreciate. And I hope you enjoy the performance.
In Locksley town in Nottinghamshire, merry sweet Locksley town, 'twas there bold Robin was born and bred, bold Robin of famous renown. The father of Robin of Forster was, he drew a lusty strong bow. His mother was niece to the Coventry knight, who slew the blue boars men know. Robin Hood and Little John walked o'er yon fields of broom. Said Robin Hood to Little John, we have shot for many the pound, but I cannot shoot not one shot more, these arrows will not flee. I have a cousin lives down in the wood, please God, she will bleed me. So Robin Hood is to Kirkley gone, he's knocked upon the pin, and none was so willing as the prioress herself to rise and bid him come in. Come in, bold Robin, she said, and have a beer with me. Oh, I cannot eat, and I cannot drink, till I am blooded by thee. So she's blooded him in a vein of the arm, locked him up in a room, and there he's bled the livelong day until the next at noon. And first he's bled the good thick blood, then he's bled the thin, and then poor Robin he knew for sure the treason was here within. And thinking him then of his bugle horn that hung down by one knee, he's bobbed it up against his lips, and he's blown weak blasts 3. You know little John was standing by, standing under a tree. Oh, my robin sounds to be so near death, he blows so wearily. Well, little John is to Kirkley Hall gone, as fast as he could ride. And there he's broke locks 2 and 3, and there he's gone inside. Oh, a boon, cried little John, Master, a boon grant me. It's to burn all of fair Kirkley Hall, and all of this foul nunnery. Nay, no, nay, quoth Robin Hood, nay, it never shall be. For I never hurt women in all my time, nor at my end will it be. But place my longbow in my arms, an arrow I'll let flee, and wherever it does touch down to the ground, there shall my grave digger be. But lay my long sword in my hand, my arrows at my feet, and leave my longbow in my arms, for 'twas my music sweet. And give me length and breadth enough, as ever while I stood, that men shall know when they pass by, here lies bold Robin Hood. Come all you fair and tender girls, who flourish in your prime. Beware, beware, keep your garden fair. Let no man steal your time. Let no man steal your time. For when your time it is past and gone, he'll care no more for you. And every place where your time was waste will be covered o'er with rue, will be covered o'er with rue. The gardener's son, he was passing by, he gave 3 flowers to me, the pink, the blue, and the violet too, and the red, red rosy tree, and the red, red rosy tree. But I forsook the red rose bush, and gained the willow tree, that all the world might plainly see how my love slighted me, how my love all the money that e'er I've had, I spent it in good company, and of all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night, and joy be with you all. If I had money enough to spend, and the leisure time to sit while there is a fair maid in this town, who surely has my heart beguiled. Her rosy cheeks and ruby lips, I own she has my heart enthralled. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night, and joy be with you all. Of all the comrades that I've had, they are sorry for my going away. And of all the sweethearts that e'er I've had, they wish me one more day to stay. But since it falls unto my lot that I should lie and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be with you all.
Technical difficulties.
Apologies for technical difficulties on that one. We may have to just overwrite the videos later so they're a little bit, my system is apparently
Luckily,
not
we
best
have
at handling.
Caitlyn's videos, so we will be able to just re-upload them to our channel, and they can live there, so you can check them out. But the audio, for me at least, was coming through crystal clear. And gosh, I forgot how much I enjoy your voice, Caitlyn. That was fantastic.
And the
so
landscapes.
do come back.
Wow.
And yes, apologies again. We will upload them again, and they will still be on this channel for you to check out. Well, Jen, I think we've chosen a starting place for our quest.
And
Indeed we have. We have found ourselves at the swamp.
At the swamp. That's where we are. We are at the swamp. The swamp. Twinkling blue lights drift in lazy circles over the swamp. Stepping carefully through marsh and puddle, we make our way to a shuttered cottage.
Within, we're immediately met by a swamp witch. They immediately chortle as we withdraw the mysterious letter from our pocket. Ah, yes, they crow. I knew you would be receiving that. Your friend's a quiet sort.
They grin. I like to hear friendships. Tell me true, which friendships have stood out to you in the pages of your fiction. Tell me 10, and I'll give you another clue.
That was almost a rhyme. But yes! Who wrote this? Let's name some of our favorite fictional friendships in the chat or on Twitter and see if we can get enough 10 to earn another clue from the Swamp Witch.
But for now, we have our next reader, John Wiswell. John Wiswell, at Wiswell on Twitter, is a disabled writer who lives where New York keeps all of its trees. His work has appeared in Uncanny Magazine, Nature's Futures, Nightmare Magazine, and other fine venues. He is Ace Arrow and is smitten with platonic bonds in fiction. A very excellent reader to have with us tonight. John?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And the story I brought for you tonight is called Tank. The tank hates revolving doors. They're petrified watching the doors whoosh by, trying to imagine anyone getting into the convention center through these things. The curb crumbles beneath the tank's treads, and the commuters honk for them to get their back end out of the road. Two tweens sneak around the tank's chassis, carrying a rack of brightly colored cosplay wigs, and they slip into one of the revolving glass chambers, and it seems to work for them. Be brave, the tank tells themselves. The tank nudges their barrel inside the revolving door, getting barely halfway in before the door clanks against their barrel. Instinctively, they try to back up, rending steel frames and shattering glass everywhere. Sighing, they tell themselves it'll get better. They're going to make friends this time. The pre-registration line is so long that they miss the morning programming. Once they reach registration, the lady frowns up at them like she was a landmine in a previous life. She says, "You didn't put in a gender." The tank rumbles. There were only two, and I don't associate male or female. And the registrar points at the tank's cannon. With that thing? Are you calling my turret genitalia? It wasn't, and even if it was, they had the equivalent of a vasectomy and filled it with cement years ago. They lower their cannon, showing the orange safety cap protruding from the muzzle. It's allowed by the convention rules. The registrar says, "I don't care what you call it. Guns aren't allowed, and you have to pick a gender." A Marceline from Adventure Time leans around the tank's treads, squinting at the registrar, and she says, "They've got the peace bonding cap on there, and the gender crap on the form was optional. It says so on the website." The registrar says, "Since when?" And the Marceline says, "Well, you want me to complain to con ops?" The registrar grouses and forks over the badge, while the tank turns to Marceline. Her badge reads Zhao. They want to tell her how much they love Adventure Time and how Marceline is their favorite character, but they can't word it right. A moment later, Zhao whisks away with a plastic fang smile and a "have a good con." Small talk is hard for tanks. They get in line for the Cowboy Bebop cast reunion, and the hallway is too narrow. Human congoers have to climb over them to get by. Even though they have no eyes, the lack of eye contact stings. They scooch over and accidentally cave in the wall to the men's room. A minute later, gophers come out of the panel room and wave everyone off. "We're full. Sorry, everybody." The show's opening theme blares as gophers shut the doors. Ironic, but Tank loves that song. The tank sulks over to the food court, feeling at least a little companionship with all the other disappointed congoers. The crowd dissipates to watch an inter-fandom mock battle. Avengers cosplayers are desperately fending off assorted crystal gems. There are at least 9 pearls. A couple of Iron Mans ask for a picture with the tank, but they just want to pose like they're blowing up the tank, and they have too much self-respect for that. The tank revs up to leave. That's when they see a Princess Bubblegum cosplayer with a plastic pink wig, her shoulders hunched, looking around for someone who plainly isn't there. But someone plainly is, a tall guy in a Red Hood graphic t-shirt. "The show went off the rails when she didn't get together with Finn," Red Hood fan says in the tone of someone who might never have enjoyed anything in his life. "I don't see why people ship her with Marcy." Her badge just reads PB, and PB cranes her neck around Red Hood fan, still avoiding eye contact. She says, wouldn't it be weird to have gay characters on a kid's cartoon?" The tank rolls up behind Red Hood fan, brushing his shoulder with their cannon. Red Hood fan cringes away, looking as uncomfortable as PB has this whole time. "Hey, thanks for waiting for me," the tank lies. "Ready for lunch?" PB arches a brow, then says, "Yeah," and sidesteps around the guy. PB and the tank get out of there quickly, heading south along the Titanic line for George R. R. Martin's autograph. The tank asks, Were you looking for someone? My girlfriend. We got separated at registration. The tank lets PB ride on their turret so she'll be more visible. This earns thousands of photos from strangers, and halfway down the endless pilgrimage of Game of Thrones cosplayers, they spy a familiar Marceline. PB hops to the floor and kisses Zhao in front of everybody. The tank could blush. I mean, it can't blush, but it could. Zhao gives the tank a plastic fang smile. You get around. The tank tries to be funny. Anywhere without revolving doors. Both PB and Zhao sort of tilt their heads at the tank. Small talk is hard for tanks. They chatter, and Zhao balls up her fists at the story of the Red Hood fan. Why do we even come to conventions? PB raspberries at her. You know why. The panel doors fly open, and the theme from Cowboy Bebop rings forth again. They pivot to get out of the way of the exiting crowd. Missing the panel wasn't so bad since the tank made these friends. Except when the tank looks again, Zhao and PB are gone. And the flood of people are heading to the next panel, carrying them away. People promptly complain that the tank is obstructing a hall, and they all roll along alone, wondering why they came to this convention in the first place. Exiting the building is the only way to avoid people, and the only way to avoid being called an obstruction. But the first one they find is another revolving door, and the tank sighs a heavy one through their chassis. Are they going to have to smash through another revolving door today? We lost you! Someone calls and tugs on their mudguard. It's Zhao, gesturing at an adjacent corridor where PB is waving for them both to come hither. We're going to the dance party. You want to come? The tank is so happy they could commit several hundred cases of vehicular manslaughter. Yes, they do want to come. They roll very carefully, though, to Ballroom B, where PB and Zhao drag chairs aside to make more room. That lets the tank spin some hot donuts without fearing crushing any dancers. Zhao whispers something to the band. As house lights dim and glow sticks crack, the band plays the theme to Cowboy Bebop. PB says, you know this song's called Tank, right? The tank can only muster a thank you. PB laughs. This is why we come to cons. That's Tank.
Thank you. Oh, I do not hear.
Wait, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay!
Now I hear you. Now I hear you.
See you saying.
I was saying just really brilliant things that cannot be recaptured. What I was actually saying, though, was I felt every con I have ever been to just rattle around my heart. And it made me both miss my friends, but also feel like my friends were here with me. So that was great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, how many different friendships did we come up with?
Well, 3, 4, 5. I think we came up with close to 10.
Close enough. What's a few between friends, eh?
Yeah, I think if you count each friend for one, then definitely like close to 20.
I think that counts. And so...
Friendships go both ways. And so, we got enough. So, the Swamp Witch. Their grin broadens. Oh, such nice friends. I will give you another clue. Your secret friend loves the sunlight.
So I'm guessing it's not Prancy.
Prancy isn't much of a secret.
This is true. The Swamp Witch's voice softens. A name I will give you in exchange for a task. Right now, this very minute, think of one of your friends. Send them a message. Say hello. Tell them you care. Then will I reveal my secret.
I'm a little unclear on how this swamp hag knows so much about our secret friend.
It's magic, Jen. It's the magic of friendship.
Yeah, maybe this is just my editor brain talking, but I really wonder how this omniscience works. We've got some really great word building on the go here, and it might be time to establish some mechanics, and you know what? Never mind. You heard the mysteriously well-informed swamp hag. Pick a friend or a few and message them. Message them right now.
I'm very pleased to introduce our final reader tonight. C.L. Polk is the author of the World Fantasy Award-winning novel Witchmark, the first novel of the Kingston Cycle. Their novel The Midnight Bargain is a finalist in the CBC Canada Reads competition. Miss Polk lives near the Bow River in Calgary, Alberta, in a tiny apartment with too many books and a yarn stash that could last a decade. They ride a green bicycle with a basket on the front, and today is their book birthday! Yay! So we're extra thrilled to have you here tonight, and welcome.
There, now
Thank you. Yes, there we go.
Yes.
Okay, I guess I am ready to read. I had problems trying to decide what I was going to read from, and fate decided it for me. I couldn't find the document for Soulstar. So I'm going to read something to you guys that isn't published yet. It's a novella. It's called Even Though I Knew the End. And I'm just going to read from the beginning of the story for you. Okay, I just have to find one more thing. There we go. Act 1. Marlowe had offered me $50 to stand out here in the freezing Chicago cold and do an augury. I'm like a damn greedy fool. I said yes. I'd computed the ideal time with Marlowe still on the telephone, flipping between my calculations on scratch paper and an ephemeris, and a perfect window for divination with the dead right now meant I had to shake a leg to make it to the crime scene during the moon's Chaldean hour, but from there, everything was going wrong. It was Luna's fault. I wasn't taking pictures yet. Moonlight sparkled off shards of freshly smashed light bulbs. It glittered on the wet asphalt underfoot, casting my shadow over a ritual circle drawn over a smear of 3-day-old blood. I held up the unnaturally still plum of a pendulum and tried again. Spirit of this departed woman, speak with me. Nothing. And that wasn't right. Kelly McIntyre's spirit should still be linked to her death place. She ought to be batting that silver weight around like a kitten, falling all over herself to tell me what happened to her. But the pendulum hung straight down, as if no one had died in this alley. Complications. I didn't need complications. I didn't have time for them. My camera hung around my neck. The bellowed lens stopped at its widest, the shutter tension open and slow. Marlowe would have to settle for photos if it ever got dark enough to take them. I tilted my head back and gazed at Luna, who flirted around the edge of a cloud, but didn't quite slip coyly behind it. She looked down at me in the alley, not caring that I was freezing to death. Come on, little lady, I muttered at the sky. Give a girl a break, would you? I shouldn't even be out here, but Marlowe not only jumped to $50, more than double my usual consultation on an occult case, but she promised that I would find it interesting. And it was interesting, but I had a date in 2 hours, and a portrait of Grant wasn't worth missing it, not tonight. I dropped the pendulum in my breast pocket and stuffed my hands in my pockets, and looked up at the moon again. I mean it, lady. Scram! And for a wonder, she did. The silver light dimmed, and since I'd smashed out all the lights with a chunk of brick in my good aim, it was time for magic to happen. I cut the little finger of my left hand, hissing as the blood welled up. I held out my hand and said, Blood, join with blood and reveal it. 3 drops of my blood fell to the cracked asphalt between my feet, landing on the sigil I'd painted there with a solution of radium alarm clock paint and the spores of a Japanese phosphorescent mushroom picked on a moonless night. It's the principle of contagion and sympathy, you see. My blood activated the luminescent properties of the radium in the living glow of the fungus and connects it to the blood that had been spilled here. You know what? Let's skip the explanation. The ground beneath my feet glowed, spreading along the alley in an obscene greenish smear like the hands on a glow-in-the-dark clock or, a fairy mushroom. Blood doesn't unspill easily. It marks the places it touches. You can't really wash it all away. I hadn't had a chance to test this spell before, but it's not bad for a gal who wasn't supposed to know anything more dangerous than the computation of Chaldean hours and a smattering of astrology. But why not dip my toes into higher sorcery? I didn't have anything left to lose. This scene was straight out of a nightmare. Kelly McIntyre's blood painted the walls, literally, not in obscene frenzied splashes, but in the cruel and deliberate drawing of magical sigils that covered the north and south walls, sprawling onto the asphalt to the east and west. And I comprehended some, but the rest? Well, they weren't Greek to me. I could read that. These marks reminded me of astrological glyphs or hermetic seals, but I could read those too. These marks looked familiar, but I didn't know them. And I couldn't put my finger on where I had seen them before. Okay, that's enough standing around with my jaw unhinged. I snapped a photo, slid the shield over the exposure, and stuck the cartridge in my pocket. I had a system for photographing ritual scenes, and I followed it. First north, east, south, west. I captured the sigils and the markings in the all-seeing eye of my Graphics. I'd inherited it from Clyde, and he'd have something to say about letting the f-stop out all the way, about not using a tripod, but I think secretly he would have been impressed with the spell that made it possible. But as I photographed a magic square filled with more of those strange glyphs, the rock in my gut got heavier and heavier. Marlowe hadn't been whistling in the wind. Kelly McIntyre's blood had painted the ground and the walls in the complex geometry of a ritual circle, unlike anything I'd ever learned as a mystic. This was deep trouble. Worse than a haunting, worse than a hex. This, I didn't know whether I was disappointed or grateful I didn't have time to take this job. Another cartridge slid into my camera and I crouched to get the best frame on the markings along the north wall. Wait, crouching? I backed up and counted bricks, holding my arm up to reckon eyeline. The half-moon killer could have been the half-pint killer. The markings put him at about 5'3". But how did a pipsqueak that size haul an Amazon like Nightingale McIntyre to this piece of the alley? I wondered at the state of the songbird nails. Has she fought back, or was she dead weight? Could I grease somebody at the morgue to find out? No, I was falling into the case and I couldn't do it. All I had time for was getting these pictures. I crouched again, shooting a square of the unknown alphabet on the south wall. The shutter clicked open and the glow on the walls intensified an instant before it all went dark. Or should I say, bright. Damn it. Luna was back, shining with all her curiosity. I had another vial of luminous solution. It was enough for another spell, but I'd have to wait. I looked up at the sky and reckoned at least another half hour. That would tip me into the hour of Saturn, and that was inauspicious. Because from what happened in this alley, Nightingale McIntyre had died no natural death, and there was no time to linger. 6 shots would have to be enough. The 7th was probably ruined. It's time to pack up. I reloaded the camera with fresh film, and my pockets bulged with 4x5 plates. The glow from the spell was gone now, but I gazed through the viewfinder all the same. Something inside me wanted one more shot, and a mystic doesn't ignore her intuition. Broken glass crunched under a boot sole. A new shadow fell over my path, shaped like square shoulders in a fedora. "What's your business here?" a man demanded, and then he made a disbelieving noise. "Christ, it's a dame!" Damn it, I'd been pinched and it was my own fault. I'd cast no wards at all. I wasn't great with the invisibility glamour, and I hadn't even set up a trip line. It was sloppy, and I deserved to get caught. 2 men had come around the corner, one tall and broad across the shoulder, the other shorter, standing like a boxer. But were they cops or robbers? My Graflex weighed heavily around my neck, and I depressed the shutter button before I grabbed air and gave a grin. The scene's clean, but a second look hell. I put my hands down. "Evening, gentlemen." "Nice night." The shorter man took the lead, gun in hand. But then I got a look at the bigger one, and even with his figure shrouded in shadow, my heart gave a little leap because I knew him. The light shifted to shine on half his face, and I forgot how to breathe. His chin, his mouth. Even 10 years older and a full foot taller, I knew. Ted? I took a step forward. Teddy? Helen, you shouldn't be here. Helen Brant? The shorter one sneered. You're still alive. Ted and I both flinched. Shut up, my brother said. His voice didn't squeak anymore, evening out to a smooth tenor. I wasn't listening to the other guy anyway. I was smiling so hard I could feel the cold on my molars. He was here when I thought I'd never see him again. Teddy, it is you. You transferred out of Ohio? Are you here in Chicago to stay? You've got to be an initiate by now. Have you earned your 3rd degree? My heart thumped in my chest like it had to carry the whole band singing in my veins. Ted, my little brother, not so little, standing right there, and you don't get to ask about me, Teddy said. You don't get to stand there and ask about my life like you have the right to hear it. The look on his face tore me open, exposing the hollow spot just under my heart that never felt full. But even through the moment I had dreamed of turning into a nightmare, the gears in my skull kept turning. Teddy wasn't in this alley by chance. They'd been watching the scene all along. They weren't cops. They're not robbers. They were high magicians, and that was worse. I lifted the collar of my coat and gathered up my dignity. I was Helen Brant, warlock. He was Initiate Theodore Brant, and I wouldn't grovel out our family business in front of a stranger, even if he probably knew the rumors anyway. I flicked my hat brim at the short one. What brings the Brotherhood of the Compass to such a charming location? Wouldn't you like to know? Shorty said with a sneer he'd probably practiced after hearing it at the movies. Who tipped you to the case? As if the Half Moon Killer wasn't all over the papers? So you're just acting as a concerned citizen, the short one said. I'm supposed to believe that of a warlock? Ted did speak. He didn't even move. I kept the words locked up tight, but if he so much as gave an inch, I'd tell him everything. I'd explain everything. But the short one was doing the talking, and Marlowe didn't pay me to snitch to the Brotherhood.
There we go. I can hear myself. Thank you so much for that. I love getting sneak peeks on Ephemera. And congratulations again on the completion of your trilogy.
Thank you.
That is absolutely fantastic. All right. Well, how's our quest going?
Oh, well, let's see. In the cottage, in the shadows, not the cottage, in the shadows of the sea cave, because that's what we picked. The witch claps their hands, claws. Good, good. You have done well with this task. They lean forward. Your friend's name is Plantington the Third.
Hey, that's the virtual plant that we nurtured during last month's event.
Wow, of course we'd like to be friends with them.
You know, it's good to get to the root of the mystery and to sow the seeds. I'm not done. Sow the seeds of a new friendship. It will be so lovely to see it bloom.
Okay, did you get them all out there?
No, but we could be here all night. I quite haven't gotten my chlorophyll of them. I'm so sorry. Just do the outro, Jen.
So we're going to have an extra long outro this time because Caitlyn's beautiful videos were a little bit laggy. So we're going to actually leave the Zoom here and we're going to play you out on Caitlyn's video so you can all see them in their full glory. Until next time, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Ephemera Series. And please subscribe to this YouTube page if you can. We'd like to thank the Toronto Arts Council and the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America for their funding assistance.
And as we close out tonight, we would also like to thank our fabulous readers and performer, composer Alex White, for their theme music, our friends and families, and you. Thank you for staying with us. We will see you on March 17th, right here on YouTube.
Good night.
Good night.
In Locksley Town in Nottinghamshire, merry sweet Locksley Town, 'twas there bold Robin was born and bred, bold Robin of famous renown. The father of Robin of Forster was, he drew a lusty strong bow. His mother was niece to the Coventry knight, who slew the blue boar's men know. Robin Hood and Little John walked o'er yon fields of broom. Said Robin Hood to Little John, we have shot for many the pound, but I cannot shoot not one shot more, these arrows will not flee. I have a cousin lives down in the wood, please God she will bleed me. So Robin Hood is to Kirkley Hall gone, he's knocked upon the pin, and none was so willing as the prioress herself to rise and bid him come in. Come in, bold Robin, she said, and have a beer with me. Oh, I cannot eat, and I cannot drink, till I am blooded by thee. So she's blooded him in a vein of the arm, locked him up in a room, and there he's bled the livelong day until the next at noon. And first he's bled the good thick blood, then he's bled the thin, and then poor Robin, he knew for sure the treason was here within. And thinking him then of his bugle horn that hung down by one knee, he's bobbed it up against his lips, and he's blown weak glass 3. You know Little John was standing by, standing under a tree. Oh, my Robin sounds to be so near death, he blows so wearily. Well, Little John is to Kirkley Hall gone, as fast as he could ride, and there he's broke locks 2 and 3, and there he's gone inside. Oh, a boon, cried Little John, master, a boon grant me. It's to burn all of fair Kirkley Hall, and all of this foul nunnery. Nay, no, nay, quoth Robin Hood, nay, it never shall be, for I never hurt women in all my time, nor at my end will it be. But place my longbow in my arms, an arrow I'll let flee, and wherever it does touch down to the ground, there shall my grave digger be. But lay my long sword in my hand, my arrows at my feet, and leave my longbow in my arms, for 'twas my music sweet. And give me length and breadth enough, as ever while I stood, that men shall know when they pass by, here lies bold Robin Hood. Come, all you fair and tender girls, who flourish in your prime. Beware, beware, keep your garden fair. Let no man steal your time. Let no man steal your time. when your time, it is past and gone, you care no more for you, and every place where your time was waste will be covered o'er with rue, will be covered o'er with rue. The gardener's son, he was passing by. He gave 3 flowers to me, the pink, the blue, and the violet too, and the red, red, rosy tree, and the red, red, rosy tree. But I forsook the red rose bush and gained the willow tree, that all the world might plainly see how my love slighted me, how my love slighted me. Of all the money that e'er I've had, I spent it in good company, and of all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night, and joy be with you all. If I had money enough to spend, and the leisure time to sit, while there is a fair maid in this town who surely has my heart beguiled, her rosy cheeks and ruby lips, I own she has my heart enthralled. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night, and joy be with you all. Of all the comrades that I've had, they are sorry for my going away, and of all the sweethearts that e'er I've had, they wish me one more day to stay. But since it falls unto my lot that I should lie and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night.